¿Cómo están? Estamos otro día en nuestro podcast. Este es un día muy especial para mí porque tuve que andar persiguiendo a una gran personalidad para que pudiera platicar con nosotros sobre varios temas que hoy en día me competen muchísimo en lo particular, pero también para Querétaro. No solamente está con nosotros un experto en el tema de sostenibilidad, en el tema LEED y en todo lo que tiene que ver con la construcción y desarrollo de hospitales y todo lo que tiene que ver con el healthcare, sino además una persona que se dedica a ayudar a mucha gente en el tema médico, de salud, pero también educativo. Está con nosotros Zach Shariff. Welcome to Querétaro, Zach.
Thank you so much.
Zach, thank you for being here. I'll be reading you some questions that my followers on Instagram and TikTok prepare for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
Thank you. Let's go. With your extensive experience in hospital construction and your role as a chairman of the Howard Hospital Foundation, how do you envision the impact of San Austin Hospital on the Querétaro community, particularly regarding access to high-quality healthcare services?
That's a very good question. So each community has different modalities of healthcare needs. You know, some areas experience more cancer, some areas experience diabetes. There's a combination of things that happen. And it's very important to understand what those modalities are in a given area so that the hospital can cater to those needs, and not only for those patients, but even looking into the future, because you have the illnesses that people experience, but then there are things like the pandemic that nobody even thought about, right?
Yeah.
So when things like that happen, you have to be very ready to make the changes and adapt to those conditions. So I think that it's important to really get a good understanding of the local population and what kind of illnesses they are experiencing, so that the design of the hospital and the construction of the hospital can cater for that, not only in the present time, but also in the future.
Good, excellent. Next question. You are a LEED accredited professional and have experience in designing high-performance buildings. How do you think sustainable design can enhance the patient and staff experience in a hospital like San Austin?
Okay. Studies have shown that for patients to recover faster and have a better experience, and not only the patients but the staff also, you have to create an environment that is looking at different areas in terms of not only the air quality, but also greenery that's available, the colors that you put around on the walls. So studies have shown that when you take into account all of that, it enhances and increases the timeline for patients to recover.
Lighting, the
yes,
sound, music.
Sound, lighting. A lot of hospitals now even have pianists that are in the lobby, so they play music, and so when people come in, they can listen to that. Their moods improve, and you can tell that it's very important because we have left brain and right brain, right? Left brain is more analytical, right brain is more creative, but when you have all of that pulled together, it is a much better experience. And I'll give you another example. There are Children's Hospital, for example, in Pittsburgh. And when you go to those hospitals, you'll see that the environment is created where there are Disney characters on the wall. They have, the stars and sun and moon and all those things shown on the ceiling. So when they're lying down,
the mood.
It changes. It makes them feel much more happier. So things like that are very important. And sustainability is just not one part, but it's a comprehensive input of different systems that you can put in to make this experience much better for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. San Austin not only offers healthcare services, but also present investment opportunities through medical offices and commercial spaces. What benefits do you see for the local community and investors by integrating medical spaces with commercial opportunities?
There are two main things that happen. So from the investor standpoint, if you create jobs in any community, that integrates the population with all the services that are going to be provided in the hospital or the medical office buildings and all that. The second part of that is when you have a medical office building that is adjacent or close to the hospital, that means as a patient, you can go see your primary doctor, you can go see a specialist, then they recommend what treatments need to be done, and you don't have to go very far to go into the hospital and get those services. And the third part on that really is, it's not just the medical office building and the hospitals, but also long-term stay for the families. So you can have a hotel which has a long-term stay, then you have the medical office building, and then you have the hospital. So it's a full 360-degree experience that the patient and their families can experience.
Well, good. Sixth question.
You have been actively involved in the Howard Country community for many years. What role do you think a hospital like St. Austin can play in strengthening the local community? How can healthcare infrastructure support both economic growth and the overall well-being of a city like Querétaro?
Excellent question, because Howard County, which is in state of Maryland, which is where I live, and the hospital that I'm a board member of, you have to be able to not only treat patients, but you have to educate the population.
Okay.
So population education from health standpoint is extremely important. Mm-hmm. So when you are in a community where you have the hospital, it's very important for the hospitals to have periodic experts that come in and talk about different things. For example, right now, at least in the United States, and I'm sure it's around the world, there's a lot of issues with mental health.
Yeah.
And mental health is so important that it gets treated. And it's not just that because people use drugs or anything like that. That's one part of it. But in today's society, there's a lot of stresses that people go through. And if you don't treat it, it gets worse, right? And unfortunately, there have been...
It affects all the community.
It affects all the community, right? So whether it's a productive member of the community is not there anymore, the economic impact is there also, right? So those types of things are very important. And I'll tell you from personal experience at our Johns Hopkins Hospital that I'm a member of, we are experiencing such an explosion of mental health patients that they come into the emergency department. And when you come into the emergency department, now you're trying to treat both the mental health patients and the regular emergency people that have, right? So when they come in, if you have a behavioral health issue or a mental patient, now you have to have two people to look over them because of physical issues, other mental issues, and you have to have that priority. So now that's taking away from the regular nurses that are treating or going to treat.
A lot of stress for the staff.
All of that. Plus it creates a backlog. In other words, the wait time in emergency rooms get more and more. So it's very important when you're designing a hospital, when you're looking at what's happening in the community, you have to look and design for all of those eventualities.
Very interesting. Okay. Energy efficiency is critical in making hospitals sustainable. Could you share specific recommendations for balancing energy efficiency with the operational needs of a modern hospital?
Yes. So we are living in an era where thankfully a lot of enhancements have been made to the energy consumption side, how we can reduce the energy usage. So think about it this way. In a hospital, there are zones where you have to maintain negative pressure. So in other words, infection doesn't go from one side to the other.
Okay.
Then you have, especially in operating rooms and all that, used to be you didn't want to recirculate the air, and you have to bring in fresh air and you have to discharge the used air, right?
Yeah.
Now there are filtration systems that are available which clean 99.99% of all the contaminants, so you can recirculate some of that. You still have to bring in fresh air, right? So it's one of the biggest areas of consumption of energy is the outside air that you bring in, because you have to treat it to a certain temperature. Sorry, I don't know the equivalent in metric system, but in English system, so you have to bring in 55-degree air. So if the outdoor air is 100 degrees, you have to cool that down, right? That's in summertime. Wintertime, the same thing, you have to heat it. So there's a lot of energy consumption that occurs. Lighting is very important. Your roof, that is big portion of a hospital. If you don't, if you're not careful and don't design it with what we call low albedo, which is white roofs and things like that, so you can reflect the sunlight. There are lots of things that go into it. So today the technology is so advanced that you can not only cut down on the amount of energy you use, but you also can generate power on site. So with solar, with wind, if possible with geothermal technology. So these are all renewable technologies that can be incorporated into a healthcare system or buildings to reduce the energy efficiency.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, the last question. You once cited the proverb, "He who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything." How would you like the San Austin Hospital here in Mexico, in Querétaro, to be perceived by the Querétaro community in terms of hope and quality of life?
Thank you for that question, and if you will indulge me, I'll tell you where I came up with that quote, right?
Yeah.
It's an Arabic proverb. So I found on my hotel room this little card that I carry with me all the time, which said just exactly that. And when you think about it, if you don't have your health, even your family, you can't take care of them. And yes, they'll take care of you for a while, but then they have their lives to live, right? So that becomes very difficult. So being healthy is extremely important. And health is a complex thing. It's just not exercise. It's the foods you take in, the environment that you're in, all of those, and mental health, absolutely. All of those come into play when you're talking about a healthy human being. So for the Querétaro community, once again, it's education. It's educating them to say, okay, you got to exercise, you got to eat healthy. And I'm not picking on sugar, but sugar is the worst thing you could do because, it could lead to diabetes, it can lead to other modalities, so it's important that...
They say it's the worst drug.
100%, 100%, because it affects your hippocampus, it gives you that good feeling, I'm eating sugar or chocolate or whatever, right? Ice cream. But that's just a temporary,
you need more.
You need more, and that creates the issue. So health is extremely important. I believe in it. And I live that. My wife and I exercise 6 days a week. We are either running, lifting weights, swimming, biking, because that's really important. And then foods, you try to eat as healthy as possible. And you create an environment, live in an area, gardens. You have. I was downtown Querétaro, and there's lots of greenery and parks and all that. It's amazing. It's amazing. People are walking. In US, people don't walk as much. We have cars. We go from one point to another, driving, right?
Yes.
So all of those come into play. So it's very important that that the community is aware of what needs to be done.
You look very well. How old are you?
Oh, take a guess.
Well, I saw, but I think right now you're like in, I don't know, 45, 46, 49?
Let me shake your hand. I will turn 69 in December, okay?
Well, you do what you say you do, right?
Absolutely.
You're congruent.
Thank you. And that is the true definition of integrity.
Yeah.
Meaning you do what you say you're going to do.
Yes.
So thank you for that question.
Well, thank you, Zach, for being here with us. Do you have any final message for the people who will be watching us here in Querétaro, here in Mexico. Perhaps something about your passion for healthcare.
Absolutely. I think we already touched upon that, which is health. He who has hope, and you can say he and she / right?
Yeah.
He who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything.
Yeah.
So every day we live, we must live in the moment. We must be grateful for what we have, and how can we improve our health, not only for ourselves, but our family, because our children learn from us.
Yeah.
Our neighbors watch us too. So
Yeah.
if you can spread that message, and you can take those steps so that this hospital that you're planning on building brings in education, brings in the best service providers, creates an environment for healthy healing, and then educate the public. That's the most important message I can leave.
Gracias.
De nada.
Señores, con esto terminamos el podcast. Está con nosotros Zach, que nos ha ayudado muchísimo a darnos una idea de todo lo que podemos llegar a hacer con nuestro próximo hospital, distrito médico, en San Austin Healthcare Hospital Center. Saludos.